It ends up right out in front. Shot, score! It's over! And who does it but Hartman? Fought through injury all night, and he gets the game winner!
Double overtime thriller to start the Stars Wild playoff series. This is going to be epic. I mean, it is rough and tough. Everybody is fighting. Everybody is... The goal scoring is next level. It's just wild. Goaltending is amazing. There's just so much to discuss, and we are going to get into it all. So let's dive in. That was a late night. Oh my goodness, the late start, the late game, the double overtime. I hope you guys got some coffee this morning. It has been a couple late nights for some Minnesota sports fans after the Wolves, now the Wild. Oh my goodness. And people complain that baseball's too long. Jeez, that was wild. Pun intended.
Yeah. I saw something online this morning. It said it was like a public service announcement cartoon, and it says, "We interrupt regular life for the NHL playoffs," and that's kind of what it was. Obviously, national TV games going double headers now, basically every night for the next week and a half, 2 weeks, as they whittle the field down. And the Wild drew the late game, and as you said, the networks always post 8:30 face-off, but we know it's always going to be closer, probably to a half an hour after what time they post. And I tell you what, though, it was worth it. It was worth it all. And burning the midnight oil and the morning oil, saw that dramatic longest playoff game in Wild history, guys, there with the 3-2 win over Dallas in Game 1 last night in the heart of Texas. And, Cole, it was tough to sleep. Alex, good morning to you. And what'd you guys think, man? It had it all. Cole, I think you said it at the top. I mean, this is the Stanley Cup playoffs, and it couldn't have come fast enough, and boy, did it come in large doses last night.
Yeah, there was no question. It was playoff hockey in full swing. All those guys came out ready to play, and they gave us an absolute thriller from puck drop to when Hartman put it in the back of the net, double OT. Just a great game through and through.
And just the classic burying while having an injury in the NHL playoff hockey. I mean, Hartman was hurt, and yet he still found a way. I don't know, just unbelievable game. I can't even... I don't know. I felt like I was speechless afterwards. I was yelling at the TV. I'm like, finally, everybody on that entire... I'm surprised all the Wild and Stars players didn't just lay down on the ice because they were clearly so burnt out from playing pretty much five periods of hockey.
Someone said they were slamming PBJs and bananas and Red Bull after the first overtime, like literally in the middle of the morning in Texas, just to get out for that last game. I think just the early observations for me, and I don't know how you guys felt about it, but like until you really see the first period of play, you go like, okay, is this Wild team ready for prime time? Is it atoned for last year's, kind of playoff gaffe, if you will, when they took a 2-1 lead over the Blues and then lost the series in 6? And I actually thought after the first 20 last night that it was the Stars who really didn't look ready for prime time, and the Wild had been, really working so hard all year not to be too high and too low, stay the course, play with that low pulse but high intensity, and I thought they did so. And when I saw that first 20 minutes, I'm going like, all right, this is going to be a hockey game. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just to kind of throw back to the Minnesota Gophers championship too, it felt like that, but it felt like the Gophers were the Stars and we were Quinnipiac. It felt like the Stars were having all kinds of opportunities over and over and over, and then all of a sudden the puck would get on our stick and we would go down and have a better opportunity. And so, I don't know, it felt like, one for us, couple for them, one for us, couple for them, and it stayed that way all the way through double overtime, and I was not feeling super confident once we got to the second overtime because the Stars looked better at the end of the game, to be honest. Thankfully, we buried, but that's just my observation.
No, I think that's true. And just to kind of go period by period here, the naysayers and kind of the doubt was raised a little bit. Really good period by the Wild. Kaprizov scores, but then we take a couple of penalties, we being the Wild, and it's a 2-1 hockey game, and you're going like, okay. But here again, I mean, the second period rolls around, the ship is righted. And I mean, there was a cast of characters last night, top to bottom, on the green team. I guess you'd have to call it Minnesota's green team since both teams are green. But that cast of characters last night, probably beginning with Gus the Bus, who made timely saves throughout regulation, but was spectacular in overtime. this gets back to the Dean Evison mentality. Like, every man up. Everybody chips in. We're not a bunch of individuals. We're a team. And boy, that that style of hockey really revealed itself last night, and much to the chagrin of Dallas.
Yeah, that second period, I felt like the Wild really amped up the physical play and really started to take over that part of the game. To me, it seemed like the Stars did not really want to play the body. They were trying to avoid getting into the roughing and the fighting and all that. But after a while, just chipping away at them, looked like they got a little frustrated, and that Dumba hit kind of pushed it over the top. But I just loved watching that physical play from the Wild and kind of dominating that aspect of the game.
Let's talk about the Dumba hit.
Yeah, let's talk about that and kind of the penalties, because it always seems like when we get to the playoffs or even regular season hockey for the Wild, usually we're the team getting beat physically. It feels like, not this year, but just in past years, it seems like other teams are the ones stepping up. They're the ones making hits that are cheap hits, things like that. And it kind of felt like we flipped the script on the NHL, and the Wild were like, hey, we're here to fight. We're here to rough and tumble. We're going to wear you down so much until we score. And then we're going to wear you down mentally. And that's what they did. So penalties were a huge impact on this game. Obviously, we talked about it. They had 2 power play goals. It was so fast, too. Insane. It was crazy. Within 9 seconds on 2 total power plays. But penalties. We talked about it in the podcast many times, Gis. Let's dive into, before we talk about the Dumba hit, we're going to talk about just how big of an impact you feel like penalties are going to have on the rest of the series, because it had a big impact on this game.
Well, you just mentioned the 2 power play goals by the Dallas Stars in less than 10 seconds. Clean face-off draws won by Dallas on each of those goals. I think it was 4 seconds for the first one and 5 for the second. Let's start on penalty kills with face-off wins in your own D zone. This is where Joel Eriksson Ek is sorely missed with the draws there. But the Wild, they learned that they could not take penalties after Dallas scored 2 goals in 20 seconds on the man advantage. And then, if you remember, they went 3 for 3 on the remaining PKs, and 2 of them were in overtime, oddly enough. So, a stern reminder, don't play dumb. But this is playoff hockey now. Hartman's a gritty player. He's nasty, and he doesn't take any. He spent the last game of the regular season suspended for a hit, I think, on Winnipeg on the Eilers kid. So I think some of that comes with it. I think Dean and the coaching staff will tolerate some of that, just as the day-to-day fracases in the National Hockey League Stanley Cup playoffs. But I don't think you're going to see a long leash if there become some habitual offenders here in games 2, 3, 4, and however this long series goes. But give the Wild PK credit. After 2 penalties given up, they killed 3, 2 in overtime, which were massive. So I think they'll be monitoring that situation. I don't think that's high. I don't think it's high on their list right now, because I think the players across the board know the unwritten rule right now.
Yeah, and some of those penalties too were very light. Some getting stick caught in their skates and letting go of the stick, not in any attempt to be trying to get a penalty or anything like that. The hooking call in Foligno felt a little meh to me. Some of the penalties felt very but obviously the penalty.
And keep in mind, Cole. Keep in mind now, these players are also watching Ryan Suter cross-check Kirill Kaprizov across the back of the ribs. They're watching other cross-checks and the players are watching this all. And so to ask them to fully keep their emotions in check and not, retaliate a little bit comes down to basically the role of the referee dice. Am I going to call this and am I not? And if you notice, they did not call any cross-checking on Kirill Kaprizov, which boiled over into all kinds of extracurriculars during the course of that hockey game.
Yeah, no doubt. And obviously one of the main ones that everybody's talking about in Dallas and in Minnesota is the Dumba hit. I kind of want to hear your guys' opinion. I'll start with you, Alex. Obviously it's Dumba finishing a check. Did you feel like it was a legal hit? If you put yourself in the shoes of a Stars fan or a Wild fan, does it matter? How did you feel about the Dumba hit when you first saw it?
I think he definitely could have hit him lower. I don't think there's any disagreeing with that. But like you said, he's just finishing a check. Is he supposed to just let him skate around the net and get an opportunity? Like, he's making a hockey play. It didn't seem that vicious to me, but I know there was quite a few fans on Twitter that did not think so and thought it was pretty cheap.
Couple ways to look at it from this camp here, guys. Number one is, I think first and foremost, you take a look at a guy like Joe Pavelski. He's an ageless wonder. He's a terrific player. He's had concussion problems before. I don't think Dumba targeted him, and I think it was the only problem I had with the Dumba hit that is he left his feet. I mean, if you are going to leave your feet, you're going to hit probably somebody a little higher. I think kudos to the NHL for calling a minor and then making it a major and then having it go to the review. Something the referee staff does know. If they huddle and deem the Dumba hit now a major, it goes to Toronto. They review it. The league reviewed it. A fairly new rule, by the way, that they can review something in playoffs like this after a determination is made by the referee crew. And what happened was that Toronto said, nope, clean hit. Dumba's in the penalty box, so you're going to give him 2 anyways, and that's the way it rolls. You certainly hope Joe Pavelski's not out for the long run. You hope he's not concussed. But I tended more towards Matt Dumba making a hockey play there than making a cheap shot, and namely because you liken it to a defensive back in the National Football League. I mean, if you're going to go up and make a play or go up and make a hit on a wide receiver, you have that split second to decide trajectory, speed, area of contact, and that's a split second. And I didn't think it was egregious. I think the league and I think the refs that night eventually made the right call, and I don't see anything further coming out of this because I think there have been 2-minute minors turned into suspensions, but from all what we're hearing today, it sounds like the league is satisfied with the review that the league made last night. And you also have to remember that the National Hockey League would be going against its own referee corps if they decided to turn some kind of fruit basket upset and turn Dumba's hit on Pavelski into something more than it officially went into the score sheet with. So I think that's behind us. I think you're going to see. I think we're going to see some things in the next game, and the next game, and the next game as a result of it. But I think first and foremost, every hockey fan would agree. Let's hope Joe Pavelski is okay. Let's hope he's okay. And this is not Joe Pavelski calling.
Oh, I wish it was. That'd be a great guest to get on and ask his opinion on it. Because
number one rule of a podcast: always turn your phone off. Got it? Check.
Yeah. I mean, just from my perspective of the hit, just from being a hockey player. First of all, being in the NHL, I think he needs to be ready and prepared for someone to finish their hit. It didn't feel that late. It obviously felt a little late when you watch it in slow-mo. But if you watch the play again, I can't remember exactly who was next to Dumba, but he's actually kind of blindsided by Dumba because there was somebody screening him and he didn't really see that Dumba was coming at him.
I think it was Hartman.
Was it Hartman? Yeah. And
because Hartman's stick ended up hitting Pavelski, yeah.
Was that what it was? Yeah. I thought it was Pavelski's own stick, but I wasn't sure. But because Hartman's standing there, Pavelski kind of comes in and kind of stands up, gets up high to try to get around Hartman to get to his own pass that he put off the net. He didn't bank that puck behind the net. He didn't try to pass it to someone behind the net. He was trying, from what I could tell, to bank it off the side of the net so that he could squeeze behind Hartman and grab his own pass without getting lit up by Hartman. He wasn't thinking about Dumba. And so obviously Hartman let him slide around as he banked that puck off of the side of the net. Puck came back. It was actually right behind. I think it touched Dumba's stick even while he was falling over. And so kind of a little bit of it falls on Pavelski for standing up tall after trying to get around a player, for trying to pass to himself and just not being aware of where Dumba was. It felt like a clean hit to me.
I would agree with you. I would agree with everything you just said. And also, and this is really a byproduct because Dumba's obviously okay. I'm actually surprised Dumba wasn't injured because I don't know if anybody was watching what happened to Dumba after he lowered the boom there, but he went into the headboards at about 100 miles an hour, and it looked like he could be concussed.
Yeah, when they stopped the play, I thought they were calling a penalty on them, to be honest, instantly. My first thought was I thought it was boarding or hand elbowing by Pavelski, but then I saw he was down on the ice, so I'm like, oh, they're just stopping play because he's hurt. Yeah. I didn't even realize that they were going to call something on Dumba, which I don't know if they actually did instantly. I don't know if that's what they stopped the play for. I think they more stopped it because he was hurt and then decided we better give him a 5-minute and get this reviewed.
I think they gave him a roughing minor for his fracas afterwards because he got into some fisticuffs afterwards. So I think that was the
With
2-minute
Domi,
minor that stayed with Domi. Yeah. You know what? I'm so glad. You know what a great thing. We're sitting here bitching about how late things are on network TV, but probably 35, 40 cameras in every building now for TV coverage. And I think a big determining factor for instant replay last night were those network cameras and deciding that no part of Matt Dumba hit Joe Pavelski's head. I mean, originally I think they thought his shoulder, caught him here or something. That did not happen, and I think that really boded in well for Matt Dumba's case moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And last thing on the Dumba thing, and then we'll move on, is, we just said Domi went after Dumba afterwards and was trying to punch him in the face, trying to hit him in the head. And it's like, I think it's kind of hypocritical of a Stars fan to say, well, Dumba hit him in the head. Dumba concussed Pavelski. But yeah, good for Domi for trying to knock out Matt Dumba, who clearly didn't want to fight. If you're going to be like, go punch that guy in the head, knock him out, concuss him, but don't do it to our guy. That's illegal during the game of hockey. I don't know. That just feels wrong to me, Yeah,
and you have to keep in mind, Domi is the son of Ty Domi, the longtime NHL basically enforcer who probably is the top 5 penalty minutes. So that if it was anybody coming out of that scrum throwing haymakers, it would be DOMI on the back of his sweater. So there's a history there, and I agree with you. And quite frankly, if I had a dime for every text I got that somebody's got to get Suter soon. And these are the things, the residuals that come out of this, obviously, when Suter's cross-checking Kirill and all this. And I think Foligno did try to go after even Suter last night, but he was
he definitely said something to him.
Pretty chirpy about that. But, hey, this is playoff hockey. It's nothing out of the norm. We've seen it before. And, again, I think you dovetail the ending of the Pavelski Dumba incident as we really hope Joe Pavelski's okay because he's a class act and he's a great player, and you don't want to see him miss any time out of this deal, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I know as a competitor, too, I'm sure the Wild want him to be all right because they want to beat their full, healthy team. You want to be the best. You don't want to win just because a player got hurt and went out. And that's not what anybody's hoping. Yeah. And I don't think Dumba or a single player on the Wild thinks it was cheap in any way. So I don't know. All right, but
as rough and tough as the game is, game is, these guys are human beings too, and no more so than I believe the National Hockey League. So there's a gentleman's respect for each other, and here's the good health for Pavelski.
Yep, and we got lots to talk about. We're going to talk about, obviously, we got to talk about. I felt like Kaprizov. We got to talk about Spurgeon. We got to talk about Gustafsson, obviously, still. But we talked about Domi just a minute ago. He was a new addition, obviously, to the Stars. So let's kind of talk about some of our new additions that were lighting it up yesterday. Marcus Johansson, let's start there. I mean, he almost won this game how many times for us? My gosh. If it wasn't for Mr. Lakeville in the net, Mr. Ottinger for the Stars, my goodness, Mojo would have had multiple goals that would have, well, I mean, you can't have multiple goals in overtime, but he could have. He could have ended that game so many times. My gosh. Unbelievable. Yeah,
it was a game of chances for sure. And we were reminded of Marcus Johansson's great skating ability and great glide last night. He has the great ability to carry pucks and accelerate and create distance and space between not only people trying to defend him, but keeping goaltenders like Ottinger totally on his toes. And I'm with you, Cole. I thought Johansson could have maybe scored a hat trick last night based on the grade A chances he had. He didn't, but he serves notice that the Wild can they can go up and down with the best of them. And you're talking about new additions here. There was a lot of new last night. If you talk about Sammy Steele playing in his first ever playoff game, now he's been with the Wild longer than Johansson and Sundqvist and Faber and everybody else. But, let's talk about Sam Steele, too. Not as new as Johansson, but playing in his first NHL playoff game last night. He gets a goal and an assist. So, these new faces and these new places that they're going, Bill Guerin's acquisitions over the course of this year are just been clockwork. And you know what? It hasn't been that big a revelation because these new kids have been good in the last parts of the regular season too, and they were ready for prime time last night. Let's talk about Brock Faber. A week ago he's gotten one knee in a very disappointing loss in a national championship game to Quinnipiac, and now he's playing major minutes. He's out there in key situations, and talk about baptism by fire. This kid's got ice water in his veins. He's making outlet passes. He's getting sticks on puck. Saved a goal last night. Johnny Merrill saved a goal last night. These are just these guys that, listen, nobody can key in on like, well, they got three guys. We really got to watch them because they'll come at you in waves, this Wild team, and, so far so good.
Yeah, I feel like this Wild team, like we have some top-end talent with Kaprizov, Zuccarello, but we are so much deeper than we have been in past years, and I feel like it's so much more of a team effort, and it's just fun hockey to watch.
Yeah, it was amazing. Watching that Sam Steele score that goal. I mean, he blocks the shot, first of all, starts taking off up the ice, just full speed, one arm in front of the other, not his hands together. He's sprinting. And while still sprinting with one hand in his stick, catches a pass one-handed and continues stride. Doesn't hesitate at all. If he had, he would have got caught, and he just completes his strides and he moves forward, goes to his forehand side, which obviously Ottinger did not expect because that's the side that he was getting attacked on. He's getting smacked by a stick over and over on Sam Steele's forehand side, and yet he still found a way to shoot forehand, and that was just that was a pro goal. We've loved Sam Steele on this podcast. We've hated on Sam Steele on this podcast. It's been up and down, but seeing that goal, I was like, all right, check. NHL player right there. That was really pro. It was good to see, and Brock Faber diving and saving that goal. Next level stuff too.
Unbelievable.
He's going to be around a long time.
Yeah, that Steele goal, I always love to point out. I mean, you just eloquently described it. He had pressure from the back end. He had all kinds of things going on, and he makes a move, but he still has to be one of the top three goalies in the National Hockey League with whatever shot he can get off, and he did so cleanly. It was a magnificent individual effort on an otherwise hockey club that preaches, let's do it in groups.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and also speaking on some new faces doing well, I'd like to bring up Nyquist. In the past 4 games he's played, had a point in every game and has 6 points. And, seeing that kind of production coming in, Faber coming in, like it's just feels like there's a breath of new life in this Wild team.
Yep. No question about it. And the coaching staff have just been licking their chops for Gus of Nyquist. I think they call him Gus too, Gus Nyquist to come back for good reason. Obviously, he's a 100% rental player. I don't think there's any chance they'll see him in a Wild uniform next year because of salary cap restrictions. But I've been told by the coaching staff for 2 months, wait till you see this kid, wait till you see this kid. And to your point, Alex, he has not disappointed. He's another guy with that great glide, right? Good in tight spots. He creates a lot of space. And I actually thought him and Johansson could have probably scored a couple goals apiece last night. So those chances are coming. And they're coming from people outside of Kaprizov, outside of Boldy, outside of Zuccarello. That is just terrific playoff news for this Green team. And maybe a corner to turn here now is I had my socks still on last night with guys like Boldy and Zuccarello and Kaprizov to an extent. Now Kaprizov playing with kind of a torn ACL here, probably about 90%. I'd like to talk about 2 guys that maybe nobody noticed much of last night, and that was Matt Boldy and Max Zuccarello. And those are 2 players the Wild cannot afford to go into the woodwork here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I mean, they just definitely didn't jump off the page. And like you said, Kaprizov as well to me, he kind of was like, is he out there sometimes? He didn't feel like he had the puck on his stick a lot. Boldy, I did think, made some pretty great passes, obviously, like to Mojo even, and he had some good setup plays. He took some shots. It didn't feel like we saw the Boldy of the past where he was only trying to make passes. He was still taking his shots, so I kind of disagree. I felt like Boldy played pretty well last night. I felt pretty good about that, but Zuccarello, yeah, he felt pretty silent. Gaudreau even, too, a little bit, in a way, felt a little quiet, yeah, so it was good to see those other guys stepping up.
I think Gaudreau,
we still have that coming.
I think Gaudreau's a little dinged up, so you give him that. But not to counterpoint you on Boldy. My impressions last night were like they've been telling him to shoot first, And there was a couple opportunities last night, I thought early, especially where he had opportunities to actually pass any shot.
Yeah, you're right.
Sure. So, and I just don't think that's Matt Boldy at his best. And, we think that he's this 30-year-old KG playoff veteran. He's 21 years old. He was playing college hockey a couple years ago. So, yeah. And again, this isn't a pick on, hate on type thing.
No,
but
you're right though.
It's a fact thing. If Zuccarello and guys like Boldy and yes, Kirill scored on a Spurgeon tip, the first goal of the game.
Yes.
That trio cannot go silent here. If you remember last year, one of our big guns was Kevin Fiala. Interestingly enough, out of the playoffs right now, hurt, even though the Kings rallied to beat Edmonton last night, which was bonkers. But Fiala would go silent in the playoffs, and it made one of the reasons why it wasn't that tough to maybe make a decision on Fiala. I'm not saying that Matt Boldy's on Fiala's track or Zuccarello's on Fiala's track, but this team is as good as it is, Minnesota. They're not deep enough to have what you would call their marquee players like a Boldy and a Zuccarello silent for long. And I don't think you'll see him silent for long. I don't know if it's the next game in Dallas, but there's going to be a heck of a homestand here coming up this weekend at XL Energy Center Friday and Sunday, and that's where you might see the gang back in town on that first line and Boldy being part of the second line.
Yeah, for sure. You got anything to add to that, Alex? Anything else you guys have to add on Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Boldy?
I will say Kaprizov's hands in this game just looked a lot quicker than the end of the regular season. He looked just more electric with his stick handling and just kind of looked a lot more dialed in. But overall, minus the goal, it's like you didn't see much from those guys. And like Gus said, they're the lifeblood of that team. They gotta keep things going to get all the other guys going. I think that's really important that they can kind of get that figured out.
Yeah, Ryan Hartman had the right place at the right time game, didn't he? I mean, with those guys a little bit on the back burner, the Zuccarellos, Kaprizovs, and Boldys, Hartsey, despite a couple of the penalties there, he rose to the occasion and obviously scored a huge goal to win it. But I just don't think moving forward we're going to be counting on Sam Steele and Ryan Hartman and whoever. Jared Spurgeon played so well last night. But are we counting on those guys for offense moving forward? I would hope not, because I think you start to roll the dice a little bit there.
Yeah, for sure. And Hartman fighting through injury, that was pretty important. It really had to happen because Eric Sinek is out. And, if you have to sit Hartman then too, that would have been a pretty impactful. I think if Eric Sinek was in that game, I think Hartman probably would have sat out for quite a bit longer than he did. He was out there pretty quick, and he was clearly still stumbling around. I mean, the fact that he was able to grab that puck and bury it was amazing.
Yeah.
But let's kind of talk about the defense for a second. You just mentioned Spurgeon, and we obviously talked about the Dumba hit, but Matt Dumba played one of the best games I feel like I've seen Matt Dumba play defensively, and I mean offensively too. He was just killer, even though every single time he touched the puck, that entire stadium erupted in boos. It was so entertaining. I enjoyed it so much. I feel like if I was Dumba, every time I had the puck on my stick, I would have been smiling because it was hilarious. I great on the Stars fans for booing him every single time he touched it. Honestly, cheers to them because that was funny.
Yeah, he did not make friends in Dallas last night, that's for sure.
It'll be interesting what happens when Suter touches the puck at XL on Friday and Sunday, too, yes. I think. But to your point, the defense played well last night. I thought Middleton played an outstanding game. Spurgeon played an outstanding game. Brock Faber was nails. But I agree with you 100%. I mean, we have ripped on Matt Dumba on this podcast all season long a little bit, in that he was a short-term player. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent, and they've tried to trade him and everything else. But he had a solid fourth quarter of the regular season, and so far a solid playoffs. His stock is rising. Good for Matt Dumba. I don't know if it's in Minnesota, but I agree with you 100%. He's become the villain of the series in no less than a period and a half. Basically, but I thought he was all over the ice last night. I thought he was generating offense, and and playing well in his D zone. And I don't think he could have played a better game. And he maybe his best game ever in a wild sweater last night. And how ironic is that if we're heading towards free agency here and a goodbye?
Yeah, Dumba last night was just electric. He was just flying around the ice, just felt like he was always in the right spot. And it was just good to see kind of old Dumba kind of peeking through. And yeah, like you said, just probably one of his best games of his career for sure.
And as we wrap up our blue line, defensive core conversation, there was a player that has been pretty good on the Wild blue line, not in the lineup last night, former Dallas star Jonathan Klingberg. He has an upper body injury. I think he tweaked something from what I heard at the first practice skate in Dallas earlier this week. And I know he did the pregame skate yesterday and was not in the lineup last night. I don't know how long he is, but I think they missed him. I was personally looking forward to seeing a Klingberg come into Dallas because I think he would have heard a few boos there, a la Dumba. And that's going to lead to something maybe as soon as a Game 2 decision if Klingberg is ready. Johnny Merrill played pretty well last night, so, where are you looking here? Who's Klingberg going to replace? If it's 7D, if there's some forwards that are hurt, I have no idea. But good problems to have. But that whole defensive core, both offensively and defensively, especially Klingberg adding so much offensively, was without John Klingberg last night, which I thought was even more impressive in a hostile environment in Dallas against basically the Central Division champions. So defense, I think, is in good shape. And it leads us to, are we burying the lead, not talking about Gus the Bus? I mean, should we be honking a bus horn now? Or
let me just add one last thing on the defense. Sure. Jared Spurgeon, player of the game, in my opinion.
World.
The amount of times that he laid down on the ice on the side of the net to block a shot with, 3 feet on each side of him between the net and the shooter, unbelievable. Like, I don't know. I feel like when I play hockey, I don't think that often when I'm playing defense to actually lay on the ice, and he did it 100 times last night, and it worked every single time. So he saved a lot of setup plays. He helped Gustafsson, I think, a lot, too. He made a lot of saves. But, yes, speaking of saves, Gustafsson. Gus the Bus. Did they make the right call sitting Marc-Andre Fleury, future Hall of Famer?
Ding, 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 ding.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, the answer is yes, for sure. And, kudos. Kudos to the coaching staff and to Bill Guerin and the hockey ops to rightfully do that. I mean, deservedly so. It wasn't really a surprise. The bigger surprise would have had Marc-Andre started, in my opinion. And Gus admitted to himself, I think I heard him in postgame, that he really went into the locker room after giving up those 2 power play goals he was not happy about and had kind of a mental reset where he just said, all right, that's happened, that's happened. That's happened. And guess what happened after the reset? He never allowed another goal. And he got into his rhythm. And I just had that feeling, didn't you guys? I'm going like, I don't think they're going to beat him again. I think this is Gus's night. And to your point, Spurgeon, Captain America, laying down. Spurgeon's bleeding out of the bridge of his nose. They're taking shots where Joel Eriksson, like he had plenty of help, but I've never seen a goalie really. Well, he had plenty of help, like from Faber and from Merrill on a couple of goal-clearing saves.
Yes.
But I've never seen a goalie just kind of get into a rhythm like that and say, no more, no more, no mas, not more. You got 2 on me, you're done. And I felt that pretty early, and I felt pretty good about that Gus the Bus was going to drive right through that rainstorm, and he sure did.
Yeah, and it feels like it kind of speaks to his play style, where he's, like you were saying in the last episode, he's very slow, meticulous, controlled. And I feel like, being able to control your mental, I feel like that kind of correlates. And I feel like we saw that. And like you said, he locked in after those 2 goals for sure.
Yeah. So just hardly any rebounds. That was what impressed me the most about him. No matter where they shot it, hit him in the pad, hit him in the thigh, hit him in the blocker. He found a way to stop the rebounds from getting kicked out. And I think that's, like Alex said, a tribute to the way he plays the game. I think if you had Fleury in the net against this team yesterday and the way that the Stars played, I don't think it's the same outcome. I think Fleury's a little, he just has a different style. He kind of flails a bit. He's all over the place. We would have needed guys to kind of help him, save him. But I think there was several goals that could have been goals that weren't, or several opportunities that could have turned into a goal that weren't, just because he stayed so stoic. He literally was like a bus. I mean, he did not chase. He didn't go after it. When he did give a rebound, he just sat there and was like, shoot it again, bring it, and it worked out. It was awesome.
And I think he was quoted, I think Russo had a quote from him post-game that he said that the minute I knew I had kind of reset and corrected myself was having that awareness and control of the rebounds better than I was. And I think that was a tipping point moment. And I love those little tipping point moments, and I love Gus. And let's get to the elephant in the room, boys. There's a game 2 rapidly approaching here in Dallas, and Dean Evason's got a decision to make, whether he comes back with Gus or he comes back with the Hall of Famer. And I'm dying to know your guys' thoughts.
I mean, I just, how do you not go with Gus again after a game like that? And he just felt in like we were saying earlier, just felt in control after those 2 goals. And I mean, I feel like you just got to stick with the momentum.
Yeah, I agree. Especially just being on the road. He already got the feel for it. I mean, if there's ever a game that the fans are going to be as loud and as rowdy and as booing and screaming as you're ever going to have, he just won it. And he found a way. And he had lots of chances that he could have gave that game away. We talked about it. Faber saved the game. Merrill saved the game. Spurgeon, I think, saved the game once. Pucks went off pipes in overtime. That puck that hit the top of his stick.
Good point.
That was
good point. They hit the knob. I mean, hit him in the knob, the old knob save.
Knocked the whole stick out of his hand. It was shot so hard. So, I mean, those are the things that I think if I was Dean Evason, though, that I would look at and say, this game, as amazing as he did play really well. I would consider Fleury just to try to change it up on him, to try to, you're on the road. Fleury obviously is not going to be flustered in a situation like that either. So, I don't know. There was obviously some plays that could have been goals that weren't, and maybe those are going to be the ones that if they change that they're basing it off of and saying like, look, we want you for home game number 1 because we want to win that game. And, your main goal in the NHL or any playoffs really for any sport is to split those first 2 games. If you're on the road, you just got to take 1. You don't have to take 2. It's amazing if you take 2. That's big. You're very likely to win the whole series if you take those first 2 on the road. But I think they won this first one, and now I think they put Fleury in the net. Whether I think that's right to go or not, I think they do. Yeah.
So I'm the deciding vote now? We got one for Gus and one for Marc-Andre?
And I think they should start Gus the Bus just because of how good he did. But personally, I think they're going to start Fleury. I think it makes more sense.
I won't disagree with you. And I'm probably not as defined as Alex and probably more on the Cole train here. We start calling you Cole Train, by the way.
There you
go. But I think there's 2 things. I think Gustafsson is the obvious choice to start. And I do agree with you that you go on the road and you win one, you're great. But I also believe that there could be some determining factors. He played basically 2 hockey games last night. It's on a short turnaround. I think if you're going to see Fleury in game 2, I think it'll be probably because of that, because it's a long Stanley Cup playoff. And if you're going to drain the tank on Gus the Bus in the first series here, especially after what he did last night, you have problems. But I don't know how you cannot start Gustafsson in game 2 here. And, let's just say Dallas evens the series. And they got a whole new set of circumstances at home, and they got a whole new goaltender who's been known to rise to playoff occasions before. I think Gus is the start, but I'm going to hedge it, Cole, and go with you and say that I do think this rotation thing really is real from the coaching staff, and they've rotated these guys, and I would not be shocked. But I think the hockey player and everybody would go like, you gotta ride the hot hand here, and that's Gustafsson.
Ride the bus. You had that bus teed up, and you.
That's why you get paid the big bucks. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I agree. I don't know. Did we sway you, Alex? Do you feel like Fleury could be in the net?
I think it's definitely a possibility. I think what Gus said, they basically played 2 hockey games last night. Rest is an important thing. This is a 2-month journey. So any chance you can, rest the guy you maybe want to start more, because like you said, Cole, that obviously you want to win every single playoff game you can, but now that we've stolen one, this isn't an absolutely must win. So I feel like switching up might not be the worst call, but I still think just stick with Gus. Let's go get a win.
Remember, we stole one in St. Louis last year too, and we're actually up 2-1 in that series. So is there another mindset that goes like, you know what, we got the best goaltender in hockey right now. We get a chance to, really put a stronghold on this thing and win 2 here. This is why they play the game.
If I was the coaching staff, I would call Fleury and Gus in a room and say, "You guys tell us who's starting this next game. You guys make."
I like
this
that.
call."
I actually like that.
That's the way I would do it. Maybe they're listening. Maybe you guys go ahead and just do that. But maybe not.
Can you guys just talk amongst yourself?
Yeah, you guys just let us know who wants to play more for this next game, and then the other person. Whoever does start game 2, I think is not going to be the starter of game 3. That's a for sure thing. And I think Ottinger obviously is going to start probably almost every game in the series. He's not. Wedgwood is not as good as Marc-Andre Fleury as a backup.
100%.
Like that. So
100%.
Before you close it out, I just want to. What a great problem to have! The fact we even need to have this discussion, I feel like we're in such a great spot with our goaltending that I love the fact that this is a question.
Well said. Well said, young man.
And kind of the same question, like we said, about the offense and the defense. We just have kind of an with Klingberg, what are you going to do there? We got Eric Sinek coming back. What are you going to do there? That one's pretty obvious, but we got some talent on this team. I think it is a much more talented team than last year. I think if we can go up 2-1, we're going to have this in the bag. I don't think it's going to be like the Blues last year. I don't want to jinx them in any way. I'll knock on wood. But I feel good about Minnesota Wild, I should say, right now. And I hope it stays that way. But I just want to close it out with one thing. And we've brought it up several times throughout the podcast. And I just want to get your guys' final opinion. I guess I'll set it up this way. First home game in Minnesota, are we going to see in the first period Ryan Reeves drop the gloves and chase after Ryan Suter?
I sure hope so. I think the fan in me agrees with Alex. I think the reporter in me goes like, and take a 5-minute major for instigating and have 3 power play goals scored by Dallas and get in a hole at home. I think situations are going to present themselves for hopefully good, hard, clean checks. What becomes of it after that, we will see. Suter's not really a fighter. He's never going to really fight Reeves, I don't think, because he's a part of their blue line and he hasn't traditionally fought. But I thought I don't know Ryan Suter, and I hadn't really thought about Ryan Suter all year long until this series, but I thought, I don't want to call it cowardly, but I actually thought that the stuff on Kaprizov last night and the behind the scenes and not really wanting to face up to Foligno, I thought he was playing a little scared there and a little cowardly. I don't know the other word. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to take that and engage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like fine hockey player, probably going to be a Hall of Famer. He's done so much for the game and in the game and for youth hockey all over the place. Like I said, I've never really met him, but I didn't like it. I thought it was kind of cowardly, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, if you're going to be playing a little chippy, a little gritty, you got to be ready to stand up and face the consequences.
That's right, Alex.
Yep. I agree.
That's right.
The fact that he was in the Wild organization and the way things went down, this is way different than if, Robertson or say, somebody else on the Stars was being chippy and cheap.
Jamie Benn.
This is clearly personal. What he's doing, the way he cross-checked Hartman behind the scene, when the puck wasn't around, he cross-checked Kaprizov.
No calls.
With intent, too.
With no calls.
With no calls, exactly. And that if you hit a guy right here, there is no padding right there on the edge of your ribs. And he was clearly trying to get up and under there, and he was trying to injure somebody. And I do not like that. I am glad that the Wild kept their composure and they didn't get penalties against Suter, because then he would have won. I think that would be what he was going for. I mean, we know you're trying to make the other team mad so that they mess up and get a penalty. And kudos to the Wild for not doing that, because I wanted to jump up at the screen. When we saw him hit Kaprizov, I just wanted to jump through the screen and be like, grab him and throw him to the ground, hit him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
On that note, the longer we talk about him, the more kind of luster he takes away from a 3-2 overtime win for the Wild in the situation that they're in. So, my parting shot would be, and it's always this time of year, and I think it's an instant replay, and I'll make it quick. But how great are the Stanley Cup playoffs? Like that, how we opened the show, like this, due to a public service announcement cartoon online this morning. Due to the playoffs, life has been interrupted until further notice. Fans watching, fans of the game, enjoy the playoffs. I mean, it is like no other time of the year. People stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning and watch this now. I can't imagine West 7th this weekend. I mean, Saturday is an in-between day. I think Saturday is going to be as crazy as Friday and Sunday in downtown St. Paul. And hopefully get a nice little, this is Christmas. This is for every hockey fan and every hockey player, young and old. This is the best time of year. So I would just challenge everybody to drink it in, stay up late, suck on the job a little bit if you need to during your workday, because it's worth it, because it's the Cup.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better, Gus.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else that we need to add to that. You nailed it. I wish you just closed it out right there, but I don't know. It's going to be epic. And it's going to be some late nights again, too. Like you said, obviously, the game on Wednesday, another 8:30 Central Time start. Game on Friday, another 8:30 Central Time start. And they say 8:30, but who knows? Might get pushed back, so be ready for that. Yeah. I think it just all depends on TV time and whether or not the game before is done yet or anything. So we'll see.
Moving forward, I think we could all take a note from the Wild and prep some PB&Js, bananas, and Red Bulls, because I'm sure we're going to be seeing more late games.
I think
a little nappy time for us old senior citizens, Alex. A little nappy time in the afternoon, just an hour or so. Then you can go a little later.
Perfect.
Yes. Well, it's
great stuff,
fun.
Guys.
Another game on the road, and then they come back to Minnesota. Like you said, it's going to be a good time. If we can go up 2-0 on the road, I feel like this is feeling pretty good. So we'll have more podcasts to come as games happen. We'll try to do some even. Probably not going to do it necessarily post-game because it'll be 1 a.m. and nobody's up anyway. You're all going to bed. But we'll do it each morning after the game if we can and give you our thoughts. Share your thoughts with us in the comments on YouTube. Just drop it below and we'll try to address it in the next one. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, you name it, throw it out there and we'll try to address it. Follow us anywhere you can find Hot Dish Sports. We're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe to the notifications. That way you know as soon as we post a podcast. And go Wild.
Go Wild. Grit first.